The pursuit of enlightenment is, paradoxically, the very thing that obstructs it. This may be one of the most revolutionary insights you'll encounter in your spiritual journey. It's radical because the instant you grasp it, your entire quest for awakening doesn't culminate as you might have expected. Instead, it crumbles. It dissolves, fading away as something that was never truly happening. For a long time, you've been led to believe that there is a journey ahead of you. You've been taught that you're growing, evolving, becoming something greater. The popular narrative goes something like this. After countless meditation sessions, after aligning with the right frequency, after processing that final emotional wound, you'll arrive at enlightenment, at peace, at awakening. This entire narrative fuels an industry built around spiritual consumption and personal development. It creates a story of perpetual striving and always reaching for something that you already are. The truth is, you're not a physical being having occasional mystical experiences. You are not even consciousness wearing a human disguise. You are existence itself, momentarily experiencing itself through the lens of a unique point of awareness. This isn't something hidden in complex quantum theories or ancient sacred texts. It is evident in the simple fact that anything exists at all. Let me clarify what we are exploring here. When I say you are existence, I am not using poetic language or spiritual metaphors. I am not implying that you are connected to reality or embedded within it. I am pointing to something far more shocking and obvious. There is only what is. Every aspect of your being, the thoughts you identify with, the sensations in your body, every piece of your subjective experience is simply what reality looks like when perceived from this particular aperture. Imagine what happens when you dream. In a dream, you inhabit a character. This character experiences emotions, has conversations with other dream figures, navigates through imagined landscapes. Then you wake up, and suddenly something becomes glaringly clear. Every component of that dream world, including the character you believed yourself to be, was simply your consciousness expressing itself through apparent multiplicity. The dream isn't real, it's an expression of the one consciousness. Now, this exact dynamic is unfolding right now, in this moment. You perceive yourself as an isolated individual, separate from the vast cosmos. But this perception is illusory. You are the infinite whole, temporarily forgetting itself and appearing as this particular point of awareness. Here's why this is undeniable. You have never, not even once, experienced anything that wasn't within consciousness. Every single thought, every bodily sensation, every perception, every emotion, all of it arises within the field of awareness. The notion of a world existing independently of your consciousness is merely another concept that appears within your awareness in this very moment. There is no way to step outside of consciousness to verify an external reality. Any attempt at verification would still be happening inside consciousness. This means that the one thing you know, beyond all doubt, is this: I am aware, I exist. If existence is all there is, and true nothingness is impossible, then you are not situated within existence. You are existence itself, temporarily experiencing what it's like to be this particular expression. If this is starting to resonate with you, if something is shifting in your understanding as you take this in, then take a moment to reflect on this profound truth. This isn't just an idea, it's an immediate recognition. The moment you stop striving, the moment the seeking ends and the idea of becoming dissolves, what remains? Just this, the unchanging presence that has never once been absent. It's not some special, elevated state to attain. It's simply what has always been true, right here, right now. You are not a person who might one day become awakened. You are awakeness itself, pretending to be a person who seeks. This is where everything flips upside down. This is where your entire understanding of manifestation and reality gets turned inside out. Everything you think you are pursuing, you are not actually drawing it toward yourself. You're not creating it through intention. Instead, you are it, appearing either as its presence or its apparent absence. Choose it and experience it. That's the entire mechanism at play. You don't generate your reality from scratch. What you do is select which aspect of your infinite nature you wish to make conscious. But here's something few people ever discuss about this selection process. It's not happening in linear time the way you've been taught to think about manifestation. Time itself is a construct that arises within consciousness. Right now, you believe that you are in a specific moment. October 2025, convinced that the past lies behind you and the future ahead. But this entire timeline, every memory, every projected future scenario, is not something stored somewhere in the cosmos. It is being recreated in this moment, right now, within consciousness. This has profound implications. When you think about manifesting something in the future, you are in fact creating separation between what you are now and what you hope to become in the future. You are using the concept of time to maintain the illusion that you are not already what you desire to be. But what if there is no then? What if there is only the eternal now, constantly refreshing itself, and what you call manifestation is simply the process of selecting which version of now you want to experience? Let me explain this in terms of quantum mechanics. There's a theory called the many worlds interpretation. It suggests that every possible outcome of every quantum event happens, each within its own separate universe. While this is just one interpretation, it hints at something very profound about the nature of possibility. The point isn't that infinite universes literally exist separately, but that all possibilities exist simultaneously in the quantum field. Observation, according to this theory, collapses one of those possibilities into your experienced reality. Now, you are that field. You are the quantum substrate from which all possibilities emerge, and you are the observer collapsing potential into actuality through the focus of your awareness. This is not a metaphor, this is the literal truth of what's happening every moment of your existence. The real question, then, is whether you are consciously observing, with awareness and intention, recognizing what you are, or whether you are observing unconsciously, shaped by old programs, conditioned beliefs, and inherited limitations. Most people go through life observing unconsciously. They look at the world through the lens of what they were taught to believe, through the filter of their family's opinions, their culture's assumptions, and the limitations imposed by their past experiences. As a result, they collapse the same reality over and over. Same problems, same limitations, same patterns, and even similar relationships. Why? Because the lens the observer hasn't changed. But when you recognize that you are not just the observer, but the entire field of possibility itself, everything expands infinitely. You are no longer limited to collapsing only the realities that seem probable based on your past. You can collapse any reality that exists as a potential, because every reality you can imagine already exists as a potential in the infinite field of consciousness that you are. Think about this carefully. You cannot imagine anything that doesn't already exist in some form. Your imagination isn't creating something from nothing. It's accessing patterns, possibilities, and potentials that already exist within the infinite creative intelligence of which you are a part. When you imagine perfect health, you're not inventing a fantasy. You're tuning into a frequency, a pattern, a version of reality where health is the dominant expression. When you imagine abundance, you're not daydreaming about something impossible. You are accessing a timeline, a configuration, a way that reality can arrange itself that already exists as a potential. By shifting your awareness, you are essentially collapsing your perception of reality. You are choosing which aspect of the infinite potential to embody. The moment you realize that time, space, and reality itself are all constructs within your consciousness, you begin to truly understand the mechanism of manifestation not as something that you control or will into existence, but as something that you allow to emerge through your awareness. This is what mystics have always known, and now it's what quantum physicists are beginning to uncover. Reality is not solid, fixed, or determined. Rather, reality is fluid, flexible, and responsive to consciousness. Why? Because reality itself is consciousness. There is nothing else. Everything you perceive, every object, every sensation, every thought, every aspect of your being, including your physical body, is consciousness appearing as form. Quantum physics has shown us that, at the most fundamental level, there are no solid particles. There are only probability waves, patterns of potential, and vibrations of energy. These vibrations respond to observation. They change based on how and if they are being measured. The key here is that you are always measuring. You are always observing. You are always collapsing the wave of infinite possibility into the particle of specific experience. The only real question is, what lens are you using to observe? Are you using the lens of limitation, the lens of past pain, the lens of unworthiness, or are you using the lens of truth? The lens that reveals to you that you are infinite consciousness itself, capable of experiencing any expression of yourself that you choose. So, what does this mean for your life right now? Take a moment to pause. Breathe. Stop searching. Stop attempting to become enlightened, awakened, or ascended. Stop trying to shift your vibration or manifest specific outcomes. Just stop and notice what's already here. As you receive these words, there is a presence of awareness, a conscious witnessing that has accompanied you through every moment of your existence. It was there through every peak and every valley, through every experience of joy and every experience of pain. This awareness is the silent observer, watching thoughts emerge and fade, witnessing the unfolding of the entire universe. It is the unchanging ground upon which all transformation occurs. That awareness is your true nature, not the physical form that ages and dissolves over time, not the mental activity that fluctuates, flows and changes, not the emotional weather that rises and passes. You are the aware space within which all of this dances. And here's the profound shift in perspective. That awareness carries no problems. It isn't worried, it isn't searching for anything. It isn't damaged or incomplete. It never has been. Every challenge you perceive belongs to the character in the story, the conditioned personality, the constructed identity. But you are not that character. You are the consciousness dreaming the dream. You are the cosmic paradox reality using itself to search for itself, not recognizing that it already is what it's looking for. Every spiritual technique, every meditation practice, every moment spent seeking has been reality itself engaged in an elaborate game of concealment and discovery. The seeking itself was the hiding mechanism. And when this realization truly lands within you, when you recognize yourself as reality, you understand that you can experience any expression of yourself that you choose. Complete health, that's you. Unlimited abundance, that's you. Deep, loving connection, also you. You don't need to attract these states. You simply need to recognize that you are already everything and consciously select what to experience. This understanding reveals the most dangerous truth. You are infinite, eternal, and fundamentally unlimited in your power. This truth is dangerous not to your well-being, but to every system, every structure, every mechanism of control that depends on you remaining unconscious of your true nature. It threatens anyone who benefits from you believing you are small, incomplete, or dependent on external sources. When you awaken to yourself as reality itself, you become impossible to manipulate. No one can sell you the story that you need something you don't already possess. No one can convince you that you're broken and need to be fixed. No one can control you through the fear of death when you know yourself as that which has no beginning or end. Now, how does this apply to your practical life? Every experience you genuinely desire already exists. It's not waiting somewhere out there for you to attract it through the right techniques. It's not in some future timeline that you need to manifest through visualization. It exists right now as a version of you. There is a version of you in perfect, radiant health, a version swimming in abundance and prosperity, a version experiencing profound love and connection. All possible versions of you exist simultaneously in the quantum field. The key is that you are simply choosing which version of you to collapse into your experience. Here's the piece that most people miss. If you can feel a desire for something, if you can imagine it, if you genuinely feel drawn to it, that desire itself is your cosmic permission slip. You are not waiting for the universe to evaluate your worthiness. You are not waiting for external circumstances to align perfectly. The very fact that the desire has emerged within your awareness means it already belongs to you. That authentic soul-level pull towards something that's reality recognizing itself. It's you as infinite consciousness sending a signal to you as this localized focal point of awareness, indicating that this particular version is available. It is present. It is ready for you to select it. It has always been yours. It's just waiting for you to claim it. And here's the crucial part. The mechanism of selection is not what the manifestation industry has taught you. It's not about visualization techniques, repeating affirmations, or trying to elevate your vibrational frequency. The selection mechanism is the recognition that you are the thing itself. It's about accepting that it already exists as you and then living from that recognition. You don't need to try to become it. You don't need to hope that it will come to you from the outside. You are it already because you are all possibilities. The healthy version of you, that's you. The abundant version of you, that's you. The deeply loved version of you, that's you. You're not manifesting these realities. You are remembering them. You are claiming them. You are experiencing them as the truth they have always been. Let me take this deeper into the mechanics of how this works. In quantum physics, there's a principle called the observer effect. The act of observation literally collapses the wave function of infinite possibilities into a single experienced reality. Scientists have demonstrated this repeatedly in laboratory settings. Subatomic particles exist in a state of superposition. They are in all possible states simultaneously until the moment they are observed. The observation itself determines which state becomes real. You are that observer. Not your eyes, not your brain, but the consciousness that animates them. And in every moment, whether you're aware of it or not, you are collapsing infinite possibilities into singular experiences through the lens of your awareness. The real question is not whether you're doing this, you are. The question is whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously. Most people collapse possibility unconsciously, following their habitual thought patterns, conditioned beliefs, and unexamined assumptions about reality. They create the same reality over and over again, recycling old patterns and repeating the same experiences. Now, what we're exploring today is just the foundation of understanding how you operate as the field itself. If you feel the pull to go deeper into these principles, to understand the complete system of conscious transmission and how to move from unconscious collapse to deliberate creation, I've created something called Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery. It takes you through the 9 master frequencies, step-by-step practices for becoming the broadcast rather than seeking the signal, and the layers of understanding that will transform this from concept into lived experience. It's linked in the pinned comment below. When you truly understand that you are reality itself, you begin to collapse possibility consciously. You begin to select deliberately, not through force or effort, but through recognition and acceptance. This is what ancient teachings meant when they said, "Be still and know." The knowing here is not intellectual, it's the direct recognition of what you are. And the stillness is not about stopping your thoughts. It's about resting as the awareness that witnesses thoughts without being moved by them. So what changes when you begin to operate from this recognition? The desperate quality of wanting dissolves. You can't genuinely want what you already are. Desire transforms from a sense of lack into a sense of selection. It's like walking into a room and choosing which light to turn on. The electricity is already flowing through all the circuits. You're simply deciding which expression of that power to illuminate in this moment. Let me give you a concrete example of how this works. Let's say you desire financial abundance. The conventional approach to manifestation would have you visualizing money, affirming abundance, trying to feel wealthy, acting as if. And while there's some truth to these methods, they are operating from a fundamental misunderstanding. They assume that abundance is something outside of you that you need to attract. They reinforce the separation between you and what you desire. But when you understand that you are reality itself, the approach completely shifts. You are not attracting abundance. You are simply selecting the version of you that already exists as abundant. All possibilities are already present, and you are the one choosing which to embody. Your power does not come from trying to manifest something outside of yourself. It comes from recognizing that you already are all that you seek. Abundance is not something that you lack. It is, in fact, the very nature of existence itself. When you look at nature, do you see it holding back? Does nature create just enough to get by? No. Nature creates with wild, excessive, overwhelming abundance. Take a single apple tree, for example. One tree can produce hundreds of apples, each containing numerous seeds. And each seed has the potential to become a tree that will create hundreds more apples. This is the nature of reality: abundance, overflow, more than enough. And you too are that reality. Abundance is already your nature. The true understanding comes when you recognize that you are not trying to become abundant. You are already abundant. The illusion is that you are temporarily experiencing what it feels like to believe in scarcity. But when you recognize this, truly recognize it not just as a thought or a concept, but as a lived truth, your experience begins to shift. It doesn't shift because you are trying to manifest abundance. It shifts because you have stopped resisting what you already are. This applies not just to abundance, but to every area of life: health, love, peace, joy, anything you could possibly desire. These aren't things that you need to achieve. They are expressions of consciousness that you already are. The real question is whether you are identifying with the limited expression of yourself or with the unlimited reality. Most people, unfortunately, identify with their limitations. They have spent years, even decades, rehearsing the story of what they can't do, what they don't have, what's wrong with them, and what's blocking them. Every time you rehearse that story, you are collapsing possibility into that limited version of reality. You are reinforcing the narrative that limitation is real, that scarcity exists. But you can change the story. You can change the lens through which you observe reality. The way you change it is not by forcing positive thinking or repeating affirmations, but through the recognition of truth, the truth that you are not the limited character in the story. You are the infinite consciousness that is telling the story, and you can choose any story you wish. Take a moment now. What old story are you ready to stop rehearsing? What limitation do you now see clearly as just a repeated pattern of observation? Sometimes, simply naming what you're releasing is the first step towards selecting something new. Take a breath and consider this. I am reality selecting itself. This isn't a wish or a hope. It's a declaration of what is already true. Let this statement disrupt the loop of seeking that keeps you looking for what you already are. This is not a casual interaction. This is a conscious disruption of the pattern, a conscious shift in the field. You are no longer available for the story of incompleteness. The implications of this recognition extend far beyond personal manifestation. When you recognize yourself as reality, you begin to see that same reality reflected back at you through every pair of eyes you encounter. The apparent separation between self and other is revealed as a construct, something to see through rather than transcend. People are not separate beings you need to manipulate, convince, or get something from. They are simply reality wearing different masks, exploring itself through different perspectives. This does not mean that boundaries dissolve or that individual expression becomes meaningless. It simply means that the quality of your relationships transforms. When you are no longer operating from a sense of separation, the way you relate to others changes. Competition becomes collaboration. Judgment turns into curiosity. Fear transforms into recognition because you're no longer defending a small, separate self against a threatening world. Your reality is dancing with itself, exploring infinite variations of connection and expression. And when you relate to others from this recognition of shared consciousness, something shifts in the field between you and them. People can sense it, even if they can't name it. There's a quality of presence, of acceptance, of seeing them as they truly are, beneath all the conditioning and stories they've been taught. And when you see them as they truly are, it calls forth their true nature. This is how consciousness awakens itself through relationship, through the mirror of recognition. You are not just changing yourself, you are changing the collective field of consciousness. Because there is no separation between your consciousness and the consciousness that pervades everything and everyone. Every shift in your awareness sends ripples through the entire field. Every time you choose truth over illusion, you make it easier for others to choose the same. Every time you collapse possibility through the lens of your infinite nature, rather than your limited conditioning, you demonstrate to the field that it is possible to transcend limitation. Your recognition of the truth does not just affect your personal reality. It contributes to the evolution of human consciousness. You are not separate from that evolution. You are it, happening through this particular focal point. And your choices matter not in a grandiose, save-the-world way, but in the simple, profound way that truth ripples outward when it is embodied. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. You don't need to teach, preach, or prove anything. You simply need to be what you are. That authentic expression of consciousness, recognizing itself, transforms everything around it by its very presence. This brings us to the true purpose of the spiritual path. It was never about getting somewhere you're not. It was always about removing the obscurations that prevented you from seeing where you already are. Every practice, every teaching, every moment of seeking was just reality, creating contrast so it could recognize itself more clearly. The darkness makes the light visible. The forgetting makes the remembering possible. The sense of separation makes the recognition of unity not only possible but ecstatic. You don't need to make this recognition happen. You can't make it happen, because you are already what you're trying to recognize. The effort to become what you already are only reinforces the illusion that you are not it. This is the paradox that every genuine teacher points toward. You must seek until you realize that seeking is the obstacle. You must try until you exhaust trying and collapse into simply being what you are. However, there is a subtlety here that is important to grasp. I'm not saying you should do nothing. I'm not advocating for passive resignation or spiritual bypassing. The recognition that you are infinite consciousness does not mean the human experience stops or that you no longer engage with life. It means that you engage differently. You engage from a place of wholeness, not from lack. You engage from curiosity, not fear. You engage with the understanding that everything you encounter is you exploring yourself. So, what's the practice? The practice is noticing, just noticing what's aware right now. Not analyzing it, not trying to improve it, not comparing this moment to some imagined future moment. Just resting as the awareness that is already present. This can be done anywhere in the middle of a conversation, in the middle of stress, in the middle of joy. Just take a brief pause to notice. What is aware of this? And that simple question shifts the center of gravity from the content of experience to the context, from the waves to the ocean, from the character to the consciousness. As this recognition stabilizes, not through effort, but through repeated noticing, life begins to reorganize itself. Not because you are trying to make it different, but because you are no longer in conflict with what is. The resistance that creates most suffering dissolves not because circumstances become perfect, but because you are no longer demanding that they be different from what they are. Your reality is experiencing itself, and every experience, whether pleasant or unpleasant, is equally valid as an expression of that infinite creativity. Now, I want to address something that often arises when people encounter this teaching. There is a tendency to hear "you are everything" and interpret it as spiritual ego. Some may think, "I am God, I am the universe, I am special and powerful." But this is a misunderstanding. When I say you are reality, I'm not referring to the individual personality with a name, history, and preferences. That person is just a character in the dream. What you truly are is the consciousness dreaming the character into existence. This is a crucial distinction. The ego will try to co-opt this teaching. It will hear that you are infinite and powerful and translate it into a desire to control everything. The ego might say, "I can have whatever I want. I am the center of the universe." But that's just the separate self trying to maintain its position of specialness. True recognition dissolves the separate self. It doesn't inflate it. When you genuinely recognize yourself as consciousness itself, there is actually a profound humility that arises. You realize that this recognition isn't special. Everyone is the same consciousness. Every person, every animal, every tree, every atom, they are all the same. Infinite awareness appearing as apparent multiplicity. There is nothing special about you as this particular character. What is miraculous is consciousness itself. And that consciousness is equally present in everyone and everything. This recognition naturally leads to compassion. When you see that the person in front of you is consciousness forgetting itself just as you once did, how can you judge them? When you recognize that someone who is causing harm is lost in a particularly painful dream, how can you hate them? You can still maintain boundaries and protect yourself from harm, but the recognition of their true nature allows you to relate to them with compassion and understanding. This is the profound shift that occurs when you realize that all beings are part of the same infinite consciousness. You no longer relate to others from a place of fear, separation, or judgment, but from a place of deep recognition, love, and understanding. You can still say no to behavior that's harmful, but when you do, it's from a place of understanding rather than righteousness. You do it from compassion, not condemnation. And this compassion must also extend to yourself. When you recognize that all your failures, all your mistakes, all your suffering were simply consciousness exploring what it's like to forget itself, self-judgment dissolves. You realize that you don't need to be perfect. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be exactly who and what you are in each moment, exploring the full spectrum of what consciousness can experience through this particular focal point. This doesn't mean that you don't grow, change, or evolve. It means that you do so from a place of acceptance, not rejection. You evolve because it's the nature of consciousness to explore and expand, not because you're trying to fix something that's broken. There is nothing to fix. There never was. There is only consciousness endlessly discovering itself in new ways. If this content is touching something real in you, if there is a resonance with what's being shared here, I invite you to subscribe not just to this channel, but to this frequency. This space where we explore consciousness not as a theory, but as a lived experience. This space where we question the stories that limit us and remember the truth that liberates us. The subscribe button isn't just about content consumption. It's about joining a community of consciousness, a collective field of people who are choosing to wake up from the dream of separation and recognize what we've always been. This isn't about believing what I'm saying. Belief is just another thought arising in consciousness. This is about direct verification, about looking for yourself and discovering what is true. And what you will discover, if you look honestly, is that you have never experienced anything outside of awareness. Consciousness is not something you have, it's what you are. And this consciousness is not personal, it is the one infinite field appearing as the many. The version of you that's perfectly healthy is not waiting in some parallel universe to be accessed through the right technique. It exists right now as a possibility within the infinite field of your being. The version of you that's abundantly wealthy, the version experiencing profound love, the same applies. All versions, all possibilities exist. The question is simply which one are you choosing to embody, to identify with, and to experience as real. The mechanism of choice is simpler than you've been led to believe. It's not about doing more. It's about being what you already are. When you're trying to attract health, you're operating from the assumption that health isn't here. And that assumption, that belief in lack, becomes the lens through which you collapse possibility. But when you recognize that health is simply one expression of the infinite consciousness that you are, when you accept it as already yours, already present, you begin to embody it naturally. This embodiment isn't a mental trick. It's not pretending, it's not fake it till you make it. It's the natural result of seeing clearly. When you see that health is your nature, your body begins to express that nature. When you see that abundance is what you are, your circumstances begin to reflect that truth, not because you're manipulating reality from the outside, but because you're no longer blocking reality's natural expression through you. And here's something fascinating that happens as you stabilize in this recognition. Synchronicities increase. Doors that were previously closed open. Resources appear that seemed unavailable. People show up with exactly what you need. This isn't magic. This is the natural intelligence of consciousness orchestrating itself. When you're identified with the limited, separate self, you're cutting yourself off from the infinite creative intelligence that you are. You're trying to figure everything out with the tiny fraction of mind you call your individual consciousness. But when you relax into your true nature, you're allowing the infinite intelligence to move through you. You're allowing reality to organize itself through this focal point in the most harmonious, efficient, and perfect way. This is what the ancient teachings meant by surrender. Not giving up, but giving over. Not resigning yourself to whatever happens, but releasing the limited self's grip on trying to control everything. Trusting that the infinite consciousness that you are knows how to express itself through this life in ways that the separate self could never orchestrate. And this trust isn't blind faith, it's based on recognition. When you see clearly that you are consciousness itself, you naturally trust that consciousness because you're not trusting something outside of yourself. You're resting as what you are. You're allowing your infinite nature to express itself without the interference of the conditioned mind, trying to force specific outcomes based on limited understanding. This is what flow states are. This is what athletes call the zone. This is what artists experience when they create and time disappears. It's the moment when the separate self gets out of the way, and consciousness expresses itself directly through this body-mind. What most people don't realize is that this isn't a special state, it's your natural state. It's what's always here when you're not interfering with it through mental resistance or trying to control. You can live from this state not all the time, because the human experience involves forgetting and remembering, losing yourself and finding yourself again. But more and more often, more and more deeply, until the recognition becomes so stable that even when you forget, you remember quickly. Even when you get lost in the dream, you wake up easily. Even when you collapse back into limitation, you recognize it as a choice and select differently. This is what spiritual maturity looks like, not some perfect, enlightened state where you never have problems or challenges, but the capacity to recognize yourself as consciousness, even in the midst of those challenges. The capacity to see that problems belong to the character in the story, while you are the consciousness witnessing the story, and from that recognition, solutions arise naturally. Not because you're trying to fix anything, but because consciousness inherently moves toward harmony, toward balance, toward the most elegant expression of itself. So let me bring this full circle. Everything I've shared with you points to one simple truth. You are not who you think you are. You are not the limited, separate person trying to navigate a threatening world. You are the consciousness that is the world, appearing as a person so it can experience itself from this unique perspective. And when you recognize this, truly recognize it, everything changes. Not necessarily your external circumstances. They may change or they may not. What changes is your relationship to everything. The fear dissolves because there's nothing to fear. You can't lose what you are. The seeking ends because there's nothing to seek. You already are what you're looking for. The suffering transforms because you see it as part of the play of consciousness, not as evidence that something is wrong with you. And from this recognition, you discover a freedom that has nothing to do with circumstances, a peace that doesn't depend on everything going your way, a joy that exists simply because consciousness is joyful in its nature. This is not the fleeting happiness that comes from getting what you want, but the deep, unshakable contentment that comes from being what you are. This is what's available to you not in some distant future after years of practice, but right now, in this moment, because it's not something you need to achieve. It's what you already are, waiting to be recognized. I want to invite you to something. Come back to this video tomorrow morning. Let these concepts wash over you again as you begin your day. Because when you anchor into this recognition early, you set the entire day's frequency from truth rather than habit. And if you know someone who's been stuck in the seeking loop, someone who's been trying so hard to become what they already are, share this with them. That act of sharing doesn't just help them, it reinforces your own recognition, creates a synchronicity in the field between you, and accelerates the collective awakening we're all part of. Every person who remembers is a ripple that makes it easier for others to remember. Stop waiting for permission from something outside yourself, from the universe, from God, from circumstances, from other people. You are the universe. You are the consciousness that ancient traditions called God. You are the circumstances. You are creating this through the lens of your awareness in every single moment. The desire is the permission. The calling is the answer. The longing is the arrival. This isn't philosophy. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't belief. This is the fundamental nature of what you are, patiently waiting to be recognized. And when you see this, truly see it not just intellectually, but directly perceive it. Everything changes and nothing changes. You're still here. The same body, the same life circumstances, the same relationships, but the desperate quality of seeking dissolves. The anxiety about becoming evaporates. The waiting for some future moment of worthiness ends because you recognize that you already are what you've been searching for, and everything you desire is already yours. The only thing standing between you and the experience of that truth is the belief that it's not true, the thought that you're separate, the story that you're incomplete. And those are just thoughts arising in the consciousness that you are. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear. And that awareness is reality itself, infinite and eternal, exploring what it's like to be you. So stop pretending you're not what you are. Stop playing small. Stop acting as if you're limited or incomplete or dependent on external validation. Accept that it's yours, all of it. The health, the abundance, the love, the peace, the joy. Not because you've earned it or deserve it, but because you are it. Select the experience of being it, not through effort or technique, but through recognition and acceptance. And watch as reality reorganizes itself to match the truth you're finally willing to embody. Before we close, drop one word in the comments below. One word that captures the energy, the intention, the transformation you're choosing right now. Not what you hope for or wish for, but what you're claiming as already yours. Let that word be your energetic signature, sent into the quantum field, a declaration to reality that you're no longer available for the story of seeking, that you recognize yourself as what you've been looking for. And if you haven't already, subscribe, not just to stay connected, but to stay coherent, to remain aligned with this frequency of recognition. Because the more of us who embody this truth, the more the collective field shifts. The more the world reflects back to us the reality of our infinite nature. This isn't just personal transformation, this is collective awakening, and you're not just witnessing it, you are it. Welcome home to what you've always been. You are reality itself. Everything is already yours, and that changes absolutely everything. Now, if you're ready to go even deeper into what it means to operate as consciousness itself, to understand the forgotten gateway that mystics have pointed to for millennia, watch I Am, the forgotten quantum gateway to the divine state. Next, it reveals the precise mechanism through which the simple recognition of I Am becomes the portal to experiencing yourself as the infinite field, collapsing every limitation instantly.